Good, what's good, everybody? Hope everyone is having a great week. Please subscribe to the channel. We have some major news that came out, and this can change boxing for the long run. And I'm going to explain at some point in this video, all right? But this giving you my first thoughts. There's not a lot of information about this, but Turki al-sheikh and Dana White has partnered up, and they're bringing us a new boxing promotion, TKO boxing promotion, okay? And this is going to be based off the UFC format. Now, Turki al-sheikh has come out. There has been talks of this happening for a long time. All right, not a long time, but for some time now, since Turki has been involved with boxing. Him and Dana has made it public that they have a good relationship and that they were looking to do some business together. And I wasn't sure how that was going to work. You know, Dana White over the years have been very vocal about what he can't stand about boxing. He doesn't like the politics. He doesn't like the sanctioning bodies and stuff like that. And many of us fans don't like it either. In fact, a lot of boxing fans have moved on to following the UFC because of this. They just can't deal with the sanctioning bodies of politics. You know, they want to see one champion. They don't want to deal with a bunch of different champions and stuff like that. So this is big. And again, there's not a lot of information about it. They did do an interview with the both of them. I saw a clip. It's like a 2-minute interview where they basically said, look, it's not much to it. We're going to have a ranking system. There's going to be one title for each division, okay? There's not going to be 3 letters before each title, you know, meaning like no sanction amounts, no WBA, WBO, WBC, and IBF. There's not going to be any of that. He is going to make one title in each division. And this is something that we've complained about for a long time. Now, the way I look at it, and again, I'm going to be making more content on this topic as soon as more information comes out. But the timing of this is perfect because Turki al-sheikh has already established himself now in a boxing game. For the last 2 years, he's been putting on these phenomenal cards, right? He's responsible. I mean, he's solely responsible for all the promoters working with each other now to make these fights. There are certain fights, like for example, Better BF and Bivol, which is a fight that because of the politics, the promoters and the sanctioning bodies, they were not going to allow these two to fight each other for undisputed, even though they were clearly the 2 best guys in the division for years, right? So because of Turki al-sheikh, he got involved. He made the fights happen. We already had 2 fights between those 2. But those are fights that just should happen, you know? And there's still many fights that we still haven't seen. But I think the timing is perfect because he's already established himself. And people know he's good for the money, you know? He's made everyone work together. He's made fights that we weren't going to get before happen. And he's given us some legendary cards, you know, some legendary matchups on some legendary cards. So now that he has the ball rolling with the current boxing system and everybody knows who he is now is the time to come up with a new format, which is more based on the UFC format, which is one champion each division. And historically, when it comes to boxing, historically, there's been, you know, multiple titles, right? You know, it was 1 title, then it was 2 unifications, then it was 3 titles, and I'm talking about the major titles. And then, you know, in the past 20 plus years, it's been 4 major titles, right? The WBO being the last one. And historically, yes, we've had some undisputed champions, but we have also had fighters that weren't undisputed. They were title holders, and they're still legendary. You know, they just maybe wasn't undisputed at some point. And we know that there's part of being undisputed and part of being just a title holder and unifying that each title that you hold, you have to pay for the titles. You have to pay sanction fees for these titles, you know, and even if you're like not the super title holder, you still got to pay these fees to hold on to this title, because this title, you're paying to become a champion. And it's not winning the fight. You have to pay to become champion. Now I don't know how it's going to go in this new promotions, but I'm assuming it's just going to be completely different, and what I'm looking to see, because this is going to take time, because if there's going to be a ranking system, obviously there needs to be fights put in place to see who's actually the best. So you're going to be pulling from boxers that are active, right? I think this organization or this new promotion should be based on a newer, younger fighters, like the guys that's like less than 25 years old. Not saying that the guys that's older than that won't get involved, but the guys older than that is used to the older system, you know? Now, the younger fighters that's coming up, they would want to get involved because, first of all, you're probably going to get a good check, unlike the UFC, who are extremely underpaid, but it's kept it where, since they are the biggest MMA brand, they're going to still fight over there anyway. You know what I mean? Because it's still the UFC. What I do like about the UFC, yeah, the fighters might be underpaid, but they actually get bonuses if they win, which would encourage them to want to win, and not just feel entitled because they're the name or the A side and all that shit, right? So you don't have none of that. But in this new company, the younger fighters would probably go into this format because they have lower amount of fights, or at least less amount of fights, and they would be moving up in the ranking systems as they, keep getting wins. And eventually when you're in the top five, you're putting yourself in position to fight for a title. So I think the older guys, it's not like the WBA and the sanctioning bodies are going to just completely disappear because there's a new promotion. It's going to take time for things to change. Now, could it be some conflicts? Yes. Like, let's say this new promotion is, we have a champion, right? And people want to see them defend their titles against the next ranked fighter. But what happens in a situation where there's a champion outside of the promotion that people want to see? How does that work? How do you make a clash between the champion of the TKO promotions versus a champion of the WBA or the IBF or whatever, and people want to see that fight? Like now, like let's say Shakur Stevenson is a champion at 135 with a new promotion, and people want to see him fight Tank, who's a champion at the WBA. Well, for now, what happens in those situations, down the line? And I know all of this is down the line, maybe even years down the line. But what I'm saying is, what happens with the old and the new, if this is going to be successful? And I believe it is, because I don't think, like Dana White said, he didn't want to deal with boxing until Turki al-sheikh came into play. And I'm sure money has a lot to do with it, but the business does too. The politics does too. It's hard. There's so many people that try to get involved, like even look at like guys like 50 Cent, who became a promoter for a moment of time. And remember, Rock Nation got involved and they picked up a few fighters like Andre Ward and a few other fighters, you know what I mean? And it didn't really work out for them neither. It's hard to be a newer promoter and coming up in boxing when you have the guys that's been there, the Hearns, Bob Arum, of course, all of the guys that's been around for some time. It's hard to really make noise unless you're the promoter of an entire network or whatever, but like a Ben Shalom or whatever. But look, I just think overall, I think it's a great idea, and it's a great way to transition from the old ways of doing things, where you got all of these promoters. If they don't like each other, then they don't do business together, and that affects the fans, that affects the fighters in their legacies, and even their money. It affects everything. But Turki has gotten all these promoters to work together, and I think the timing is right, because now he has a relationship with almost everyone. It seems like everyone outside of Al Heyman, they've been able to make things work. So moving forward, I think this is a great idea. I do think that boxing should be more organized. This is one of the things that I've made content on, in the many years I've been doing this, I've made content on this in the past about, comparing boxing to the UFC format. And I think this is great news. And I can't wait to see how this works, because I do want the best to fight the best. If you are a ranked fighter and you are number one, you should be fighting the number two guy or the number three guy, I mean, the next one that's in rank. I think once you turn down a fight, when it's a fight that's not really meaningful for you or whatever, then you should get knocked out of the ranking system. Just like that. If you're the number two guy, or if you're the number two and the number three are going to fight each other, and the number three just want to go straight to the champ, and they avoid the number two because the number two is not as popular and don't have a name, but they're just dangerous. If you don't want to take that fight, then you should get knocked back down to the number 10. It's that simple, and I think in that sense, that's the only way. If we can normalize that, then we can get out of the A side talk, the A side or B side talk, all the other weird stuff that comes with it. Of course, people should be paid based on ticket sales and stuff like that. I'm not saying when it comes to being paid, everything should be equal. No, there are bigger names out there than others. But when it comes to becoming a champion, if you're fighting the right fighters to move yourself in rank, you should be getting the opportunity. You shouldn't just be ignored because no one knows who you are. If you are fighting the best people, this will remove people from ducking. Now, people will take more losses, but that's part of the game. We have to get back to people taking losses and still being great, instead of people just trying to defend this undefeated record for the whole career. We got to get out of that. All right. So I'm very happy. As soon as there's more news and more details about this, then, we'll talk more further about this. But that's all the information we have right now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And please subscribe to the channel. Hit the thumbs up. I'll see you guys on the next one.